Hi everyone, this is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make this little stone chip bracelet. Now, this bracelet is worked from a base of herringbone stitch. This is the stitch you can see in the bottom. And then I just fringed through the thread bridge in the middle and then between the beads of the original herringbone stitch. So, let's go through what you're going to need for this project. Today, I'm going to use a combination of several different seed beads and a mixture of chips. Now, you can get your chips in a 16-inch, 12 to 16-inch strand. I think, actually 14 to 16-inch, I think. One strand is more than enough. I just made a mix of the different ones that I wanted to use today. And this is more than enough here. One strand, if you want to do one color, is enough. If you buy two strands and mix them together, you can make two bracelets. So don't get huge chips. You want chips that are basically probably 4 to 6 millimeters, no bigger, maybe even smaller. The bigger chips are harder to get to work on this bracelet because you're using seed beads on either side and you want them to fit around without seeing a bunch of thread. So use a smaller chip. Then we will work our herringbone stitch, or today I will work my herringbone stitch in this off-white pearl 6/0 seed bead. These are check seed beads I'm using today. You can most certainly use a Toho or Miyuki. Use rounds. They work better to go in between, and you're going to be sewing between these a lot. So I'm using an off-white pearl, then I'm using a lavender speckle, and then I'm using, this is, let's see, it is a stone look red marble speck, and then I'm using kind of a mauve pink pearly 11/0 seed bead, and it's also a check. You will need a clasp and 2 wire guardians. You will also need 8-pound Fireline. You can use 6 if you'd like. I just prefer 8-pound. And I'm using a size 10 beading needle. Let's rearrange the camera here and get started. Now I'm going to start with my herringbone stitch with my main color that I'm going to use here. I'm going to use the other two colors just in the embellishment on top. So you're going to start by picking up 4 6/0 seed beads onto your needle. And you're going to bring them down to the end. You do not have to leave a long tail, enough to kind of hold on to. And then you're going to sew back up through the first 2 you added, hold on to your tail and your beads, and pull. And they will stack on top of each other like this. And then you will sew back through. Your thread is coming out of these 2 here. Sew through the 2 top ones. And then we're just going to tighten everything up and sew back through the 2 first ones. Just sewing in kind of a circle here just to really secure this. This is what we're going to build off of, so I'm going to sew through it a couple of times just to make sure that it's nice and secure. And this is what you will have. Now we are going to start working this direction. We're going to go through we're coming out of this bead, we're going to pick up 2 beads, and then we're going to go down into the bead next to the one the thread is coming out of. And we're going to pull. And stack the beads on top of the two first ones, and then we're coming out of this bead here. We're going to go into the one next to it and up through the one on top of it and pull. And your thread will slide down in between the beads. Again, pick up 2 6/0s, go into the bead that your thread is coming out here, go into the bead next to it and pull. And then your thread is now coming out here. We're going to go into the bead next to it and up through the bead on top of it. And pull. One more time. Pick up 2 6/0s. Your thread is coming out of this bead, go into the bead next to it, lay your beads out on top. Now your thread is coming out here. We're going to go into the bead next to it, through the bottom, and up through the bead on top of it. Now you want your tension to be good, but don't make it so tight that you won't be able to sew between the beads later. So just go ahead and finish this until you get to the length you desire. However, you'll want to leave an inch. Go to the length of your wrist and leave about an inch. Now, actually leave a half an inch, simply because this bracelet is rather bulky and you'll need to leave room for the beads on your arm. So go to a half an inch short of the length that you want, and we'll be back. So I have gone to length now. I'm a half inch short of the desired length I want. And now I'm going to attach my clasp. Since I'm coming out of this end and it's here and available, I'm going to go ahead and get that part done. So what we will need to do that is we will need to pick up 2 11/0 seed beads and a 6/0. Now we are coming out of this bead right here after we've finished our herringbone stitch, and we're going to drop the 2 11/0s and the 6/0 down. I have a slip knot in my thread. There we go. And then we're going to pick up a wire guardian, and we're going to go through one side of the wire guardian and drop it down. Slip your clasp through your wire guardian. It's easier if you just lay it down like this. And then go through the other side of the wire guardian and through the 6/0 and pull. Now put your finger on top and just gently guide the thread. Just put a little pressure on it. And that should guide your thread right into the divot on the wire guardian. That's the most difficult part when you're trying to attach your clasp directly without using a jump ring. Okay, now we're coming out of the little 6/0 seed bead. We need to grab 2 more 11/0s, and we're going to come down through the first 2 beads in the herringbone on the opposite side and pull. Now we're going to come up the bead next to the one we're coming out of. We're coming out here, out of the second one in the herringbone. We're going to go to the opposite side, up through the second bead in the herringbone, up through our 11/0s, up through our 6/0, then sew through the wire guardian again, and through the clasp, and pull, lay it down, go through the other side of the wire guardian and the 6/0 and squeeze, or just lie it down and put your finger on top and guide your thread. Make sure it goes into the divot on the top of the wire guardian. And then go back down through the 11-ohs and the first two 6-ohs in your herringbone stitch. Make sure your tension is good, everything's tight, and then sew through exactly the same way. Go up through the other two, up through your 11-ohs, your 6-oh, your wire guardian, and your clasp, and secure that 3 times. So I've secured my clasp now, and I'm coming out of the second bead here. A little note on length. Now I'm using a little bit bigger clasp than I did last time. And last time I didn't allow for room, the bulkiness of the bracelet. So I've said instead of leaving an inch, leave a ½ inch. But also take into consideration the size of your toggle clasp. If it's a really big one, you may not want to go for ½ inch. You may want to leave an inch. Just kind of take into consideration the size of everything. Do allow for at least a ¼ inch of bulk in your bracelet to take up room on your wrist. I am having a little bit of issue with length on this particular design, so you'll just have to kind of gauge it and work with it a little bit and see exactly, because this is about an inch here that this is taking up. And so my bracelet might be a little big, but because of the bulk, I'm hoping that it's the correct size. So just kind of gauge what you're using so that you can make a decision on how long you want to make your bracelet in the original herringbone stitch here. Now, like I said, we're coming out of the 6-oh seed bead here because I've just secured my clasp. I've also taken my straight nose pliers and just gently closed my wire guardian so that it lies correctly on top of the 6-oh seed bead. Now, you're coming out here, you want to come up in the bead next to the one you're coming out of and up through the top 6-oh, right here, and pull. To start our center embellishment, we need to work on our thread bridge. This is what we're going to use, these little threads in between, are what we're going to grab to anchor our middle fringe. So, what you need to do to get there is you need to grab this little thread right between the 11-ohs that we have put on for your clasp. You're going to slide your needle underneath it and make a little half hitch knot right on that thread bridge. This will position us to be able to work down the middle of our bracelet. So now my thread is centered between the two top 6-oh seed beads here. Now I'm going to start working my embellishment with my different color 6-ohs and my main color 6-oh seed bead, and I'm going to use my 11-oh seed beads. So I'm just going to kind of alternate colors. It can be random, it can be uniform, whatever you want to do. Pick up 2 11-ohs. I'm going to start with my main color and then 2 11-ohs. So you'll need 2 11-ohs, a 6-oh, and 2 11-ohs. Now you're right here, so you're going to grab the next thread bridge right in the middle of your beads here, and you're just going to slide under it and pull. Make sure that your 11-ohs slide down on either side, touching the beads, and are not on top of the 6-oh or in a strange position or anything. And we're going to move these around a little bit because we want them to be kind of here and there. We don't want them to be really straight down the center. So you can kind of move it to the side. And then I'm going to pick up 2 11-ohs and my lavender speckle 6-oh and 2 11-ohs. And then I'm going to go down underneath the next thread bridge and pull. Just work on the top threads of the thread bridge. You don't have to reach and try to get the entire thing. There is kind of a thread underneath and a thread on top. Just grab the one on top and then pull through. Make sure your 11/0s fall underneath your 6/0. And now I'm going to pick up another one of my main color, and then I'm going to slide underneath with my two 11/0s on either side. I'm going to slide underneath the next thread bridge. As you start doing this, your thread will want to bind into the other fringes you've already made. So just kind of watch your thread and take it slow as you pull it through so that you don't get them all wadded up. Because if you do, then your bracelet will not lie right. So my next one, I think I'm going to grab the pinkish stone colored one. So this is what I have. I'm going to slide underneath my next thread bridge. I'm kind of moving from side to side so that my 6/0s and 11/0s just kind of lay at a little random pattern here. And pull. And then I'm going to grab my next main color and do the same thing. Go underneath the next thread bridge and pull. And one more time. Pick up two 11/0s and a lavender speckle one, two 11/0s. And like I said, you can use all one color. Like in this one, I used just the lavender speckle, and I used clear and amethyst quartz beads. On this one, I'm using rose quartz, amethyst, and clear. So I thought I'd make just kind of a little contrast, or actually a complementing color of each in my embellishment on the top here. And this is what it will look like so far. So go ahead and do this the entire length of your bracelet. When you get to the end, we'll be back. I have finished my entire embellishment on top. Just kind of randomly putting my different colors on there. And now I'm going to take my needle off of my working thread and put it on my tail. Sew back in, turn it over, and tie it off on the thread bridge on the back. And then we'll be back. Okay, so I have eliminated my tail now and then put my needle back on my working thread. I am coming up with the second thread bridge here. You don't want to go all the way to the very top one on your very end beads, just to the one next to it, right there. So now we're going to go underneath the top thread bridge and just tie a little half hitch knot. Make sure everything's nice and straightened up. And then we are going to sew back into the top and the second bead in the herringbone stitch. Turn it over. We're coming out here. We're going to go into the bead next to it. And up through the top. And this is where you'll find that your thread keeps getting caught on all your fringing continually. Now we're going to do the exact same thing we did on the other side, attaching our clasp. We will pick up two 11/0s, a 6/0, and our wire guardian in the other half of our clasp and attach it and secure it, and then we'll come back. I have attached the other side of my clasp. Instead of coming out of the second bead when I came through on my last pass through, I came out of the first bead, so that now my thread is between the two first beads in the herringbone stitch. And now we're going to start adding our chips. Now, as you use your chips, just kind of pick ones that are a good size. The real thick, great big ones, don't use. They just don't lie right. So try to use small to medium size ones. And what we're going to do is we're going to go between each and every herringbone bead. So we're going to pick up 2 11-ohs on our needle and a chip. Just pick out, and then 2 11-ohs. We are coming out between these two beads right here. We're going to go into the very next bead. I'm coming out of this bead, I'm going to go into the very next bead. So basically, I am putting my embellishment, my fringe, whatever you want to call it, between the two beads. Pull. And make sure that your 11-ohs go down to the work and that your stone is on top of them. Now you're coming out of the next bead. So pick up 2 11-ohs and another chip and 2 11-ohs, and then just go, you're coming out here, go into the next bead. You have to angle your needle a little bit and pull. Make sure that your thread doesn't tangle on any of your other fringe. Arrange your stone so that the 11-ohs are on the bottom and the stone is on the top. Now this one's a little thick, so it's a little threadier, but anyway, that's how that looks. And then 2 11-ohs and another stone and 2 11-ohs. And slide, you're coming out here, slide into the next bead. Everything is just placed right between the herringbone bead stitch. As you do it, you can arrange them, bring them where you want them to be, or you can just let them go where they want to go. It's up to you. And then I'm going to pick up 2 11-ohs and maybe a rose quartz here and go back in. You can do it randomly, you can do your colors in order, you can do all one color, it doesn't matter. The important part is that the 11-ohs lay next to the herringbone and the stone just kind of sticks up on top. So go ahead and do this the entire length of your bracelet and we'll be back. I have finished entirely this side of the bracelet that I've been working on. And as you do this, just make sure to keep your thread as tight as possible. It can't be incredibly tight because of the shape of the stones and just the general stitch that we're using to put them on. However, try not to have a whole lot of slack. Try to keep them as tight as you can, and if it gets loose as you're doing it, you can pull the stone in front and then the next stone and the next stone until you can tighten it up. Now I am coming out of, I've done my very last fringe here, and I am coming out of this very last top seed bead in my original herringbone stitch. And so now I am just going to cross over to the one on the opposite side. Make sure your thread doesn't get caught into any of your fringe or your clasp beads, and pull. And now I am coming out between the two beads on the other side, and I can start my fringing again. So we will fringe down the entire side again until we are to the end. Now on this side it might be a little bit more difficult simply because you have so much stuff now on your bracelet that your thread will want to get caught and your beads are getting a little tighter. Just be patient and go ahead and go through each one. You should be able to navigate it just fine. We'll be back once we have finished this entire side. Okay, so now I have finished my entire other side, and this is what it looks like. I'll show you up close. Just kind of cute, just kind of fun, little bobbly looking thing. Now I am coming out of the last pearl in my herringbone here, as that is where my last fringe stitch went through. And you can see that some of the beads will fall down on the bottom. You can just kind of push them up between the beads and over to the top and kind of squish them around and make it nice and full looking when you're all finished. But now we need to tie off. So we can just go through this second bead here on the top. And then we can just start grabbing the middle thread bridge right here. It's a little harder to grab than it was on the other side because we put beads on the other side and it pulled it in deeper. So just grab a hold of it and start doing a few half hitch knots. And so through the next bead. And do another half hitch knot. And just do that a couple of times until you feel like it's nice and secure. And I will be back with the finished product. Okay, so here I am back with the finished product here. I was worried that it would be too big, and it's slightly loose, but that's okay. I like a little movement in my bracelet. But really, it wasn't too bad. So I would say when you're making your main stitch to probably stop at 1 inch or half an inch, depending on the size of your clasp, like I said earlier in the film. And just kind of judge it and remember that the bulkiness of the bracelet does take up a little bit of room. But don't go crazy with it like I did and make it really too big. This isn't too horrible, but it would be better if it was just a little bit looser or tighter. Anyway, that's how you make this bracelet. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you find some really pretty little gemstone beads to work with. Have a great day.